Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're embarking on a really fascinating journey. We're diving into a stack of sources, exploring something absolutely fundamental: culture.
That's right. You can almost think of it as the invisible software running in the background of our lives.
Exactly. Shaping our societies,
Yeah.
how we live, even how we see the world. So our mission today is to sort of unpack how this software gets installed, how it updates itself, and, how it impacts everything.
Right, from your own personal identity right up to global interactions.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting, I think, is that we'll be looking at it through lots of different lenses, some foundational theories, but also some real-world examples that might actually surprise you.
Okay.
So this deep dive isn't just about definitions. It's more like giving you a toolkit for thinking critically about, the whole human experience. So maybe as we go, think about what questions this might raise for you about your own cultural landscape.
Okay, let's unpack this then. So our sources seem really clear that culture isn't something you're born with. It's learned entirely.
Entirely learned, yeah. Through a process called enculturation.
Acculturation, right.
Yeah.
I remember Talcott Parsons used this really strong metaphor. He suggested a newborn is like a savage.
He did, yeah. And then society sort of arms them with cultural tools to transform them into, a functioning member. It's like a societal download, really.
Wow. Okay. And those first lessons, they must be crucial.
Absolutely foundational. Identity, first off.
Yeah.
Your name, your family, your community's social setup, maybe caste or class. These things immediately start defining who you are.
Right. Knowing where you fit.
Exactly. It's fundamental to navigating life.
Then you get into the practical skills, I suppose, like survival skills.
For sure. A kid in the countryside might learn farming or maybe some traditional crafts.
But in a city.
In a city, totally different. They'd probably pick up, say, English, computer skills. It's all about adapting to your specific environment.
And it's not just stuff you're explicitly taught, is it?
Yeah.
A lot is just picked up.
Oh, a huge amount comes from imitation. You remember Bandura's Bobo doll experiment, right?
Vaguely, yeah. The one with the doll.
That's the one. It showed so clearly how kids mimic what they see. If they saw adults being aggressive with the doll, they were aggressive.
And if the adults were gentle.
They modeled warmth and gentleness back. It's a powerful reminder.
Yeah.
What you see, you often absorb,
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So if culture is learned like this, how?
Uh-huh.
How deep does it go? How integrated is it?
That's a really important question. Our sources suggest it's not just a collection of separate bits and pieces. It's integrated, almost like an organism.
Like an organism.
Yeah, where every part influences the others. There's this model, Haviland's barrel model. It shows how the environment, infrastructure, social relations, and worldview are all kind of interconnected.
Okay.
They push and pull on each other. It's a constant loop.
That sounds incredibly complex, like everything's tangled together. Do you have a real-world example of how these loops work?
Sure. Let's take the Kapalka of New Guinea. It's a classic case. So, the women's horticulture, growing food, that feeds the pigs.
Okay, pigs. Got it.
Now, the men use these pigs to gain political power. More pigs, more influence. Powerful men then take multiple wives, paying for them with pigs, which makes family ties incredibly important.
Makes sense.
But because warfare is pretty common there, men are often scarce, which actually reinforces the need for polygyny, for having multiple wives.
Wow. So it's a complete cycle. The farming, the pigs, the politics,
Yeah.
the marriage system, even the warfare. It all feeds back into itself.
Exactly. A seemingly small thing in one area can ripple out and reshape the whole society.
That leads to something else really interesting. Our sources highlight. Culture isn't static. It's incredibly dynamic.
Always shifting, yeah. Always adapting.
We see that so clearly with economic changes, right? Or technology.
Definitely. Think about how urbanization and industrialization in many places have kind of shrunk those big traditional joint families down into smaller nuclear ones.
Yeah, that's happened in a lot of societies.
And then you've got rising living costs, more women entering the workforce.
Which gives them more economic independence.
Right. And that, in turn, leads towards marriages that are maybe more egalitarian, more like contracts.
Anthony Giddens called them pure relationships, didn't he?
That's the term, yeah.
Yeah.
Partnerships that last only as long as both people feel satisfied.
Which connects to things like rising divorce rates, maybe more live-in arrangements.
It does, but it's more than just statistics. It reflects a really profound shift in how we even think about commitment. It's moving away from maybe obligation towards mutual satisfaction being the main thing holding it together.
What does that mean for, long-term stability or family structures? Big questions there.
Huge questions. And another layer to this is that culture isn't all visible on the surface, is it?
No, definitely not. It's got layers.
Absolutely. Our sources make this distinction between overt and covert culture.
Okay, overt and covert.
Overt treats are the easy ones to spot, like your hairstyle, the clothes you wear. An outsider can see those pretty quickly.
But covert?
That's the deeper stuff. Intimate rituals, deeply held beliefs. Understanding those requires real rapport. It takes time, maybe even participant observation.
Like that anthropologist, Kenneth Good. Didn't he go to incredible lengths?
He really did. He actually married a Yanomami woman to study their sexual customs firsthand. That's deep immersion.
Wow, that's commitment to the research.
Yeah.
And what about things we do culturally without even knowing why? Like it's just automatic.
That brings us to explicit versus implicit culture.
Explicit versus implicit. Okay.
Explicit features are things people know they're doing. They can explain it, like participating in a certain festival tradition.
But implicit.
Those are things you do, but you might not know the original reason, like maybe offering milk during a festival just because it's always been done. The original reason, maybe something about unsafe water centuries ago, is lost.
Huh. Interesting.
Or think about funeral rites. Often there are specialists involved doing specific things, but most people attending might not know the exact why behind every action. They just perform the ritual.
It just is. And even the sort of emotional core of a culture
Yeah,
that can be expressed too.
definitely. Our sources talk about ethos and eidos.
Ethos and idos.
Ethos is like the culture's underlying vibe, its emotional heart, the core values, the beliefs.
Okay, the feeling of it.
And eidos is how that ethos actually shows up, how those values manifest in rituals, in buildings, in everyday behavior.
Got it.
Ruth Benedict had this idea of cultural configurations. She talked about a culture having a special genius, like a unique personality that ties all its different traits together.
Like Apollonian versus Dionysian.
Exactly. Contrasting that calm, ordered, balanced Apollonian style, think classical Greek temples, with the passionate, maybe ecstatic Dionysian energy, like a wild carnival.
So understanding a culture means looking beyond just the surface things, trying to grasp that underlying spirit.
Precisely. You need to see what connects it all.
This brings us to some pretty big theoretical debates, doesn't it? About what culture is fundamentally. Is it shaping us or do we shape it?
That's the crux of it, yeah. Herbert Spencer, way back, introduced this idea of culture being superorganic.
Superorganic, meaning?
Meaning it exists sort of above biology, above physics. It has its own rules, its own life, almost. He used this analogy of a society being like a growing body.
Interesting.
And the connections within it are symbolic, not just physical. Then Emil Durkheim built on that.
Yeah.
He talked about norms and values as social facts.
Social factor.
Yeah, like external pressures guiding our behavior, things outside of us that shape what we do. And he warned that if these social facts break down, society can fall into enemy.
Enemy.
Yeah.
Like a feeling of normlessness.
Rootlessness.
Exactly. A sense of aimlessness, moral confusion. It can happen when society's rules weaken, leading to more individualism, people feeling isolated.
So the idea is culture is almost this separate overarching thing controlling us. Alfred Kruber definitely pushed that superorganic idea further. He saw people almost as like blank tablets that culture writes upon.
A blank tablet.
Yeah. And he pointed to things like parallel inventions. You know, Darwin and Wallace both hitting on evolution around the same time, or Bell and Gray with the telephone.
Right. Those examples are striking.
Kroeber argued it wasn't just lone geniuses, it was the cultural moment, the society, the existing knowledge. That's what sparks innovation.
The time was right, culturally speaking.
Exactly. And Leslie White added another dimension, viewing culture as an energy harnessing system. It evolves as societies get better at capturing energy, usually through technology.
That's a really powerful perspective, culture as this grand external force. But surely not everyone bought into that completely. It feels like it downplays the individual.
You're right, it got pushback. Alexander Goldenweiser, for one, argued the superorganic view kind of ignores outside influences and really underestimates individual agency. Well, he pointed to his own experiences. Working closely with informants, even writing their obituaries, revealed unique personalities, people making their own distinct mark on their culture.
They weren't just passive recipients.
Not at all. And Edward Sapir really hammered this home. He insisted individuals are historical and concrete. They bring their own particularity to the table.
Like the cook adding their own twist to a family recipe.
Exactly that. It's the individual touch on the cultural tradition. Sapir also made a great point about anthropology itself. Its strength isn't necessarily a perfectly defined object of study, but its unique outlook. Every researcher brings their own filters, which shapes what they see.
Hmm. So it raises that question again. Are we just carried along by this big river of culture? Or do we get to steer our own boat within it? Or maybe carve out little streams?
Understanding that tension is key, I think, seeing where we have agency and where we're shaped by these larger forces.
Okay, let's see how these forces play out in society. What about something really personal, like religion?
Yeah, that's a great area to look at. There's the classic secularization thesis.
Secularization, the idea that religion fades away with modernity.
Basically, yeah. As societies get more tech, more science, more rationality, the argument goes that formal religious belief and practice tend to decline. Thinkers like Comte, Fraser, Weber, even Marx with his opium of the people idea pointed in this direction.
So modernization equals less religion. Seems logical on the surface.
It does. But then Durkheim flips it. He argued religion isn't really about gods or the supernatural per se, it's society worshiping itself.
Society worshiping itself, how does that work?
He made this key distinction between the sacred things set apart, forbidden, that bind the community together, and the profane, just the ordinary everyday world.
Right.
And these sacred things, they only have power because the group collectively agrees they do. They symbolize the collective conscience. So even if old gods or rituals fade.
New sacred symbols can emerge.
Exactly. Durkheim believed new ones would always pop up. Maybe science becomes a kind of religion for some, or new cults form around charismatic leaders. The form changes, but the function of binding people together remains.
And how does that look today in our, complex modern world?
Well, it connects really well to Mafasoli's idea of neo-tribes.
Tribes.
Yeah, these sort of urban cliques or groups that form around shared tastes. Could be music, certain brands, a sports team.
Ah, okay. Like fan communities.
Kind of. And their sacred objects might be their favorite band, the team logo, maybe even a particular guru figure. We see glimpses of this maybe in guru convoys in Delhi or huge spiritual gatherings, satsangs.
So modern ways of finding that sacred connection, that collective belonging.
Exactly. Binding people through shared passion, shared identity.
Connecting this back to the bigger picture then. Culture isn't just beliefs. It's deeply tied to power status.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Think about Thorstein Veblen's theory of the leisure class. He talked about conspicuous consumption.
Right, buying fancy things not because you need them.
But to show off, to parade your wealth, gain status, climb the social ladder, luxury watches, designer clothes, incredibly lavish weddings. It's about signaling.
It's a performance of wealth.
It is. Though, of course, Weber and Marx would add that owning resources also gives you straightforward, practical power, influence.
Sure, but status isn't always just about hoarding, is it? What about things like redistribution?
Good point. We see that in things like the potlatch ceremonies in some indigenous cultures, where chiefs gain prestige by giving away wealth, or Melanesian big man societies.
Are there modern parallels?
You could argue some exist, maybe large religious centers that also function as vote banks, or political figures known for extravagant displays that also involve some redistribution to followers.
And status symbols can matter even when people don't have much.
That's what's really striking. Clement Belly did this study in Delhi slums, found lower caste residents sometimes prioritizing things like LED TVs, branded phones, fashionable clothes.
Over basic needs like better food?
Yes. Because those visible markers earned them respect, a sense of empowerment within their community. It tells you something profound about the human need for recognition, doesn't it?
It really does. What does this say about our own spending? What are we signaling?
It makes you think.
And this whole conspicuous consumption thing, it must have wider societal effects on fairness.
Definitely. It creates what sociologists call reference groups, the people we compare ourselves to, and it fuels a bandwagon effect. Everyone queues for the latest phone, scrambles for the trendy SUV.
Right, keeping up with the Joneses.
Which drives competition, maybe overuse of resources, and can entrench inequality over the long run. Even philanthropy sometimes can be part of this status game, right? Boosting image, maybe market value.
So culture's changing, status games are being played. How does culture actually change over time? What are the mechanisms?
Our sources lay out four main processes. First up is innovation, creating something new. This can be primary innovation, something totally new, like the steam engine. Or secondary innovation, adapting something that already exists, like Indian car manufacturers, giving cars higher ground clearance for local road conditions, tweaking existing tech.
Makes sense. What's next?
Second is diffusion. That's just borrowing traits from other cultures. Think pizza becoming global or pop music spreading everywhere.
Pretty common nowadays. Third.
Third is cultural loss. This is when societies just voluntarily drop old practices. Horse-drawn chariots get replaced by cars. Old ways of doing things fade out naturally.
Like progress, in a way.
Hmm.
But what if the change isn't voluntary?
That's the fourth process. Repressive change, often called acculturation. This is forced borrowing, usually when one group dominates another.
Forced change. That sounds rough.
It can be. Sometimes it's a two-way merge called transculturation, maybe Dalits converting to Buddhism, forming new groups, finding new identities through a mix of old and new. But it can also be really destructive, like ethnicide.
Ethnocide, like cultural destruction.
Exactly, violently wiping out a culture. Historical examples might include colonial education policies designed to erase local languages or bans on religious practices, or even, tragically, environmental destruction impacting groups like the Yanomami.
But communities don't just sit back and take it, right? They react.
Absolutely. They react in different ways. One is syncretism.
Syncretism, blending things.
Yeah, blending old traditions with new elements forced upon them. The Trobriand Islanders are famous for this. They took cricket, introduced by missionaries, and mixed it with their own traditional dances, chants, even battle dress. They made it their own.
Wow, that's creative resistance.
Isn't it? Then there's revitalization. That's a conscious effort to revive or reform a culture, often in response to stress or oppression. Think of early Buddhist converts, or perhaps B.R. Ambedkar leading mass conversions of Dalits to Buddhism as a way to reclaim dignity and identity.
A deliberate cultural rebirth.
And finally, sometimes the reaction is outright rebellion. Like Birsa Munda's uprising against British policies in India late 19th century. He fused traditional kinship structures with revived spiritual beliefs to mobilize people.
So culture, power, resistance,
Yeah,
it's all deeply connected.
absolutely. And as we interact with all this with different cultures, our own cultural background acts like a lens, doesn't it?
Yeah, and sometimes that lens makes us judgy.
That's the danger. Sumner called it ethnocentrism, judging other cultures purely by your own standards.
Creates an us versus them mentality.
Exactly. In-group favoritism, suspicion or dislike of the outgroup, even double standards. Maybe being lenient if your own kid does something wrong, but harsh if someone else's kid does the same thing.
And the consequences can be pretty bad.
They can be really serious. Ethnocentrism breeds stereotypes, thinking of whole groups in simplistic, often negative ways. It fuels prejudice, leading to discrimination, actually treating people unfairly based on those prejudices.
Like denying someone a job because of how they dress, based on cultural assumptions.
Precisely. It can lead to marginalization, pushing groups to the edges of society. And historically, it's underpinned huge systems of inequality, like colonialism with its white man's burden ideology, or racist myths used to justify oppression.
Okay, so if ethnocentrism is the problem, how do we try to overcome that bias? How do we look through a clearer lens?
Well, the main counter idea here is cultural relativism, largely associated with Franz Boas.
Cultural relativism.
Yeah.
Understanding things in their own context.
That's the core idea. Try to understand cultural practices on their own terms, within their specific context, without immediately slapping your own judgments onto them. It promotes a kind of scientific detachment and, ideally, tolerance.
But is it absolute? Like anything goes?
That's the tricky part. We need to distinguish between absolute relativism, the idea that you can never make a moral judgment about another culture's practices, and critical relativism.
Critical relativism.
Yeah, which suggests you should postpone judgment until you have the full context, the deeper understanding. It doesn't necessarily mean abandoning all judgment forever, especially when fundamental human rights might be involved.
So there might be limits.
Yeah.
Where does universal human rights fit in?
That's exactly where the debate lies. Critics of absolute relativism argue it can be misused by dominant groups to justify harmful practices. Some point out it's almost self-contradictory. It demands universal tolerance, which is itself a universal value claim.
Right.
And it definitely clashes with the concept of universal human rights. The idea behind something like the Universal Declaration of Human Rights isn't to make all cultures identical, but to set a basic minimum standard of dignity and safety that applies to everyone, everywhere.
So when you encounter really difficult practices,
Mm-hmm.
things that cause severe harm,
Yeah.
that's where relativism gets really challenged.
Precisely. It forces us to grapple with incredibly complex ethical questions. Where do you draw the line between respecting cultural difference and upholding fundamental human dignity? There are no easy answers there.
Okay, one last area to clarify. People often mix up culture and civilization. How are they different, according to our sources?
It's a classic distinction. Some early thinkers, like Lewis Henry Morgan, saw stages: savagery, barbarism, then civilization, often marked by the invention of writing.
So civilization is like a more advanced stage.
That was one view. Others, like Green, define civilization more broadly, including things like established language, metallurgy, science, tech, complex political and economic systems.
Okay.
But a common way to distinguish them is civilization is often seen as the material side of things: settled agriculture, cities, states, advanced technology, maybe warfare, writing systems.
And cultures?
Culture is more the internal side: the traditions, norms, ethics, values, art, beliefs, the spirit or way of life.
So like civilization is the hardware, culture is the software.
That's a decent analogy. McIver and Page used a different one: soul and body. Civilization is the external physical body built by many hands. Culture is the internal emotional soul, maybe shaped more by creative individuals or groups, and it's always evolving.
They're intertwined but distinct.
Exactly. Two sides of the same coin, really constantly influencing each other.
Got it. And just to quickly define a few other related terms people might hear, what's culture shock?
That's that feeling of disorientation, maybe anxiety, when you're suddenly dropped into a totally different cultural environment where all the rules seem different.
Right. And culture lag.
That's Ogburn's idea. It's the gap when technology changes really fast, like smartphones appearing, but the social norms and etiquette around using that tech take longer to catch up.
Ah, yeah, we see that. Pluralism.
That's simply when different languages or distinct cultures coexist within one society, like in Switzerland.
Multiculturalism.
Similar, but often refers to an official policy that actively supports and values cultural diversity, like in Canada.
Subcultures.
Smaller groups within a larger culture that share distinct norms, values, or styles. Think goths or skaters, maybe?
And finally, countercultures.
Those are groups that actively oppose the dominant cultural norms and values. The classic example is maybe the 1960s hippie movement.
Okay. Wow, we've covered a huge amount of ground. What a deep dive. From how culture shapes us from birth, how societies change, adapt, resist, even how we judge or learn not to judge.
Yeah, it really is the invisible software, isn't it, running everything?
It is.
And I think if you connect all these dots, understanding culture isn't just about knowing facts. It's about seeing that really intricate dance between us as individuals and the societies we live in.
Between the visible things and the invisible sources.
Exactly. That constant push and pull that ultimately makes us who we are. It helps explain so many of the unseen forces guiding our choices, our beliefs.
So the big takeaway for you, listening, maybe take a moment to think. In what subtle ways does your own culture influence the choices you make every single day, maybe without you even realizing it?
How much of what you think, feel, and do is down to that cultural programming, and how much is uniquely you?
Definitely something to chew on. We'll leave you with that thought for now.